Hey everybody, how you guys doing today? Thank you so much for joining us today. Today we are talking to the legendary Chris Claremont. It's true, legendary. As many of you know who are joining us, I'm sure you know Chris is responsible for much of the X-Men history, much of X-Men mythos that we know today. That has been adapted into cartoons and television and movies, and literally basically created the X-Men that has become the worldwide phenomenon that we know today. He's done so much. So Chris, welcome to the Read Pop live Q&A.
Well, thank you for having me. This is a new experience.
Well, we thank you so much for joining us. We're looking forward to seeing you at Florida Supercon and 4th of July weekend as well.
God willing, and the creek don't rise. I don't know how I can compete with all those youngins walking along the beach, but we'll give it a shot.
Have you ever been to Miami?
Yes.
Miami's a fun town. It's a little loud for me. It's a fun town, and I come from New York.
I actually prefer the West Coast. It's a little more relaxed.
Right. True.
You know, I mean, it's just fun. The thing with Miami, because I'm a melodramatist and I always think in terms of disasters, is I look at all these like 60-story skyscrapers that seem awfully close to the high tide mark. And all I can think of is like, you know, there's a hurricane out there that's thinking, okay, baby.
So you visualize like the tsunami coming over the wave.
No, just the rising water. I mean, you know, but like I said, I'm a melodramatist. I think in worst case scenarios for fun.
That's what you get paid for. It's true.
God willing, and the creek don't rise. Oh, sorry. You're going to hear that every 15 minutes.
No. What is that? I'm curious. What is it, like a giant clap?
It is, as they say, it's my great-grandfather's
grandfather. That's awesome.
Oh yeah. Well, but it's, I guess, I don't know, 150 years old. So wow. It's just, you know, like me, we hang around.
And if you move it to the side, is there a secret like cave behind it that you can escape into? Like,
if we move it to the side, it falls down. Which
we don't want to do that.
Repairing it is a big challenge. We don't do that.
No, we don't want to.
However, if we open the door and slip through, but I can say no more.
Awesome. I wanted to start off with a couple of questions that I came up with myself. Some things that I'm kind of about. You know, you're responsible for some of the biggest characters in the X-Men universe: Rogue, Gambit, Psylocke. The list goes on. Sabretooth. The list goes on and on. Mystique. There's so many. I know. So I want to ask you. I know this is going to be asking you like to pick from your favorite children, but which of these characters are your favorite to write? Which one of these characters that you created are your favorite to write?
Honestly, I don't play favorites anymore. I've known them. I mean, it's embarrassing to admit it, but I've known them a minimum of 40 years. And in some cases, actually, in the case of Scott and Jean, a half century. How do you play favorites with that? I mean, I can gripe about their outfits, which I do often, mostly to myself.
Right.
Well, I have a vision of what they look like, and Marvel has a vision of what they look like, and sometimes we're less simpatico than you will. Right. On the other hand, since I have nothing to do with the series of the characters anymore, I can babble like an idiot.
Well, was there anyone
no, I mean, it's
easier to write than the others that you just felt their voice more?
Well, some of them are more challenging simply because with the passage of time, they have been I mean, my advantage was for the bulk of the first 20 years, I had control of everything. Right. It was either me or me and Wheezy, and we were fairly simpatico. So I knew who everybody was. I knew where they were going. I knew what was happening. You know, but then you have a whole chunk of them ending up in X Factor with Peter. You have a whole chunk of them ending up in Excalibur with Warren Ellis, with the X-Men, with everybody.
Right.
So with each iteration, like it or not, they and so it's I look at the era that where it was mine, quote unquote, and I figure that's not so bad. As for the rest of it, you know, things happen, time passes. You know, it's like I have no idea. I mean, Stan wrote Spider-Man 30 years after he stopped writing Spider-Man, doing one-offs. How did he feel about that? For better or worse, I never asked and he never told, but it's a good thing and a bad thing. You know, it's like I look at them and I think, no, they should turn left, not right.
Right.
But I'm not writing the books. So it's,
But I guess my question means towards during your tenure on those books, were there characters that you felt were, you know, easier to write for you, that you felt you enjoyed writing more, or were there characters that during your tenure that you felt were difficult to write, you couldn't find their voice necessarily? Or were just all your voice?
I mean, the problem. Well, no, the problem was the challenge was only having 20, 18 to 21 pages every 4 weeks. You know, there just weren't enough pages to give everybody equal time or marginally equal time. And if I moved characters off screen so I could bring other characters on, then it was assumed by everybody else, oh, they're available. So I'd have to move them back on really quickly to keep them pure, I suppose.
Right. I see it.
Well, it's I mean, and sometimes you start down a road and you have a better idea, or I have what I thought was a better idea. You know, I mean, and then sometimes things come in from left field. For example, you know, we had a while where Peter and Kitty were a relationship. But the thing always was, she's 13, he's 18 going on 19. That's a different world than if she were 18 and he were 28.
Right, of course.
That becomes a more civilized assumption. With Kitty at 13, the whole rest of her life is available. But, you know, we let the status quo go for a while, and then Secret Wars came along, and out of nowhere, Jim had Colossus fall for this alien named Zaji. And he fell really hard for her. And then he came back and told Kitty, because he's an honorable man, I fell in love with this other girl. She won my heart, and then she died, and it broke my heart. And of course, being as clueless as a rock, he has no realization of the impact his words are having on her, which of course gave me 5 pages of, oh, baby, I can do this. I did. And out of that came a whole sequence of stories, which were really cool. One of which was Nightcrawler and Wolverine taking Colossus to a bar because Wolverine's going to beat the living daylights out of him.
I remember that.
Except Juggernaut got there first.
I remember that.
Yeah, I mean, it was fun. And I think that was for me the hallmark of the series, whether it's X-Men, whether it's Excalibur, whether it's New Mutants. These are essentially kids. They're teenagers. They're at worst or at most in their young 20s, which means everything is ahead. And because it was a totally different era, being kids, they got chances if they screwed up. And that for me was the Marvel I fell in with in the 60s, when Stan was writing it, even though he was writing, you know, a grown-up Reed Richards, you know, you look at Spider-Man, he's cool. He's someone I felt I could relate to. Same with Johnny, for God's sakes. But for me, I wanted to hold on to that element, that excitement, that sense of life. I quite frankly have no interest in middle-aged superheroes because, oh, great, DC. I don't, you know, I would be much more fascinated by a 20-year-old Batman screwing up on his first missions and trying to figure out, do I want to be Batman or do I want to be Bruce Wayne, than, you know, a 40-year-old Batman who's master of the universe and just, you know, what's your superpower? I'm rich. Okay, that's nice. Why should I care?
Right.
That's, for me, that was the problem. Stan made real life characters, or at least fictional characters that seemed real life, whereas for a long time with DC, they were just characters. They weren't people. For me, it was a major difference. And as usual, I just talk way too much.
No, not at all. Not at all. Please, I love hearing every word of it. I guess it's difficult. No, I do. You know, I'm a comic book fan, tried and true. So, like, I love all the inside baseball on this stuff. I guess a question I have that spins out of that is, I know, like you had said, I had heard, you know, keeping that the youthful element of the characters was more exciting to you. But I kind of remember reading or hearing a rumor once upon a time that your original idea was to have the X-Men kind of age out. And of course you created the New Mutants, but the idea was that they would eventually rotate out and they would age, but those characters would kind of go off into the sunset, and it would just be a rotation of new characters. Is that a true that they would age out, the original idea behind it?
Well, no, it was my way of relating to the fact that by the time we got to the late 80s, it was dawning, we're going to be around a while. And for me, going to conventions back then, it was starting, but it's become significantly more relevant today. When you sit there and a kid, you know, someone comes up and says, I love your book. And it's like, thank you. That's cool. We talk. But now, then it became a position by the time, as I said, we got to the 80s where, hi, this is my son. I love comics. He loves comics. This is his favorite character, or her favorite character, which was far more fun. And I realized, holy cow, we can look at this from a generational standpoint. Nowadays, it's even crazier because, hi, my dad got me into comics. I love your stuff. This is my son or my daughter. She loves her stuff. And I'm waiting for the day, not so long, when that generation comes up and introduces the next generation. So we're now talking 3, maybe 4 generations. And my feeling was, cool. They don't want to read about characters created in 1974, even though they haven't really significantly aged. Each generation, to me, should have a character that is theirs. So I guess
that the idea behind, like, Jubilee, who came in much later into the X-Men, like the youthful character that was brought in?
Well, Jubilee,
Kitty Pryde originally, etc.
Gambit. And if I'd kept going, there would have been more.
Right.
But the idea was, so you pick up X-Men 100 and you see one team. You pick up 200, maybe things are changing. You pick up 300, wait, when I saw Kitty 100 issues ago, she was 13. Well, now she's 15. Cool.
Right.
You move them up slow steps because you want the time to investigate. I mean, I'm sorry, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 are, from a writer's standpoint, are extraordinarily rich fields of emotion and story. I want to plumb them to the cliche depths.
Right.
And at the same time, with each generation, I guess, of the comic, create a new character or two that young readers who start then can say, can bond with. So
Right.
you have a reader fall in love with Gambit. So maybe 100 years later, 100 issues later, years, geez, you have another character that the next bunch of readers can bond with. You create character. I mean, we were a book for whom at least about a third of our readership, over 125, 150,000 readers were women. So let's give them
More diverse.
something to bond with, either a character like, for the heck of it, Rogue, or Gambit. That way you can cover all the bases.
Right, right.
You know, someone can fall in love with, someone they can throw eyes, whatever. To me, this is the essence of serial comics. The difference between us and my trope, standard trope, NCIS, is you go back and you look at Gibbs, you know, what's his face, in 2002 with the pilot, and you think, whoa, not bad. But then you cut ahead to 2020 and you realize, holy cow, he's been doing this for 17 years. But
Right.
unlike comics, time doesn't slow down. Each year, you're a year older, and some actors look at more than others. So, I mean, that's our advantage. We can stall, we can bluff, we can say, we
Right.
don't have to get older. Magneto, yes, is at this point probably close to 100, if not past it. But you can fudge and say, well, he's got control of magnetism. Harley can be cloned into a Shi'ar body that will walk until somebody decides it can't. We can do things in comics. We can cheat to an extent that the quote unquote real life can.
Right, of course.
So
even including cheating death. It's that time.
Well,
Well, that's one of the best.
yeah, sometimes you
allows
shouldn't.
you to play with aging and play with life or death. You know, and if we were to have to tell these stories that were so impactful and then remove the character from the board, as it were, indefinitely, like, what would we have? The X-Men would be gone in its entirety at this point. I think at any one point they've all died.
Well, I'll give you. Well, let me give you two paradigms, which is how I would have dealt with certain situations. Have Marv Wolfman running after me with a brick again. So you look through whatever it was, not Secret War, the DC, them versus their Ultimate A, that 12-part, the
Crisis on Infinite Earths
limited series,
Crisis
on
on
Infinite Earths. And there's this one brilliant cover that George did where Superman's holding Supergirl, and oh my God, she's dead. And I looked at that and I thought, oh, you idiots, you've missed the best bet ever. What was it? Well, Supergirl is holding Superman. Oh my God, how do we win now? We have just lost the Man of Steel. We've just lost our champion. Because look at Justice League. What do? We can't win without Superman. Bring him back, wham, and they win. This was my version of it. And you get to the end, and they've defeated the whatever his face is, and they're all, but they don't. It doesn't feel like a victory, because how do we go home? How do we proceed with Superman on? And suddenly, you see movement at the back of the crowd, and this old man starts forward, and with each step, each panel, he's standing up a little bit straighter and a little bit straighter. And he reaches up and he brushes back his hair, and you realize, that's not white hair. He's wearing makeup. And he walks out into the future, and you realize it's Superman. And he looks around at everybody and it's like, why are you all surprised? I'm Superman. I don't get old.
Right.
But Lois got old. This is Superman from 1938.
Right.
Lois got old. Jimmy got old. Perry got old. I had to watch them die, but I couldn't let them pass seeing me stay as I am. So I got old too. After a while, it just became a habit. But now, just imagine the ad you know, coming next month from DC Comics, the one, the only, the original Superman, written, drawn, and blah 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 by John Byrne. I'm sorry, I would have bought that, because you take the standard trope and you turn it on its head, and think about it. Look, he's not going to go anywhere near Lois. Why? Because he's already had that part of his heart broken. He's not going to do it again. She doesn't want to go near him because he's not the Clark she knows. So everybody starts all over, starts fresh. And what's even better is, as the original Superman, he's vulnerable. He's not as unbeatable as the Superman we're used to seeing. He has to figure out things. He can demonstrate to Batman, I'm as smart as you are. I just never had to do it before.
Right.
You can do all this stuff. So back to Marvel, and if you're going to reboot stuff, if you're going to have people fall in love with everybody, if you're going to do a Secret Wars thing, do it. If you're going to have, I mean, I sent Scott and Madeline off with a happy ending. She had a baby. What in the name of, and the problem was, when they created X Factor, no one considered that side of the equation. We'll just restart the Scott-Jean relationship. Great. Then you're going to tell the readers that it's okay for a husband to walk out on his wife and kid for his old girlfriend.
Right.
And the frightening thing would be, how many of the readers would then say, oh yeah, that happened to my dad. That happened to me. That sucks.
Yeah.
So if I were, my point is, no, if you're going to create X Factor, great. So you bring back, Scott is in the position where he's been re-upped for another tour. He doesn't want to do it. He wants to stay home with his wife. But this is what he does better than anybody. And what does Madeline do? She's scared stiff because she knows the cost this can do. She's afraid he'll go out one morning and never come back. But he's her husband, to love, honor, cherish till death. So she goes too. And I mean, think of the tension. Think of the stories you could do out of that emotionally. But then, wait, we need someone else, a weak lady. Well, has a big sister. And what is Rachel's power? She's a living Cerebro. She's the one who goes out and finds the mutants that X Factor deals with, and she triggers powers for the issue so they can find out whether this is a good person or a bad person. But she's a neophyte, so she screws up occasionally. And suddenly, maybe she can't depower the bad guy. But more importantly, she's single, which gives Hank and Bobby and Warren something to do.
There you go. That makes a lot of sense.
You reorient the dynamic of the team. It's like you spend 7 movies with Hawkeye in the background, and occasionally, who are you talking to? Old girlfriend. Which is a joke, a pretty cool in-joke, because yes, why is she an old girlfriend? Because they got married.
Right.
And then when it's revealed in Civil War, you think, A, didn't see that one coming, but B, that's really cool.
It's super impactful
because he
adds some gravitas to that character.
It's redefining the superhero trope in easily recognizable real world terms, which is brilliant, but which is how you should do it. I mean, and why Marvel Studios do it, Marvel Comics not do it? That's, I guess, what drives me crazy. There are all these potential moments of fun and adventure and ways of bonding the audience that we should be exploiting as enthusiastically as humanly possible. And,
I think it's a challenge.
But there you are.
In an event-driven market. It's always, what's the next big world ending event, this cataclysm that it's happening. It's happening constantly, churn and repeat. Instead of those character moments, like you said, those character building moments, you can have both of those together.
The character moments are what form the foundation of the big
Exactly.
event. I mean, the thing for me, the moments of relevance were not simply the end of Infinity War when everybody melts and you get the reaction shots of the Avengers realizing, holy, we're it. It's the opening scene of 2 where it's Hawkeye. You know, he turned around and all you see is the dust, and you realize, holy, that's not fair.
Right.
But like 20 minutes later, Ant-Man walking down the street, Scott Lang, and it's like, oh my God, he's terrified because he doesn't know if his daughter's one of the departed or not. And then, of course, when he finds it, it's like, you're all grown up. That, for me, was a moment where I sat there and went, okay, this is almost worth all the stupid stuff that the fight, the never-ending fight. But also the point where Tony says, well, Tony can't help. Sorry. Tony can't help finding the answer because he's Tony Stark and that's what he does. But the thing that defines him is, I can't lose my daughter.
Right. Right.
You there?
Any parent,
sorry. I thought
any parent
but I mean, for me, that's what. Okay, now we know what Now we know what this is all about. Ah! Damn it!
No worries. I'm still here. Are you still there? Can you see me?
Oh. Yeah, I hate computers, and they hate me back. But I mean, that's what I mean. Stories should be grounded. The best stories are the ones that grab and pull you into the reality of the heroes, the characters. And that's how you do it in movies, that's in TV, that's how you should do it in prose or comics. Because the beauty of comics is you only get roughly 100 images per story, per issue. And it's the reader's job to fill in everything that's in the panel borders, which is what bonds them with the story, what bonds them with the character, what bonds them with everything. And if you can grab that and get them running with that, well, there you go for the next 10 years.
There you go. I mean, I can tell you from my own experience, specifically with your 10 Young X-Men, like, of course, I remember all the big moments. I remember, Days of Future Past and Death of the Phoenix. But I can the things that I always related to, that I can remember vividly, is like, before they went out into space to battle with the Shi'ar, they would play baseball, or there would be a scene where Kitty and Peter were cuddling on the couch and talking about their feelings. Like, I can close my eyes and I can see those panels, opposed to some of the other big battle stuff which never resonated as hard with me, because I could relate to it. So that's the Gene.
But that's the idea.
All of those things. Like, I remember those images so clearly.
Yeah, I mean, it's why I keep going back to my standard trope, which is NCIS. The moments I remember, the moments that made me bond with the series, were not the investigations. The investigations, it's the same on NCIS as any other story. But when suddenly, out of nowhere, one of the characters someone else decides, I've had enough, or someone new comes into the mix and has to prove themselves, that's where you go, didn't see that coming.
Right.
And that's the key. You hopefully grab the reader with a moment that they never saw coming, like the death of the redhead, and see where it goes from there.
There it goes. I get that. So going to a different topic now. I think we discussed this a little bit, or we mentioned it a little bit. There's going to be a follow-up or sequel to God Love Man Kills, right? I don't know how much you can tell us or can't tell us, but it's it's an exciting.
The book is being reissued, with a framing sequence, 5-page prelude, a 5-page.
Hi, Beth. That's
No,
Chris.
that's Marvel
Hi, everybody.
strangling me, prevent me from telling you the secrets.
Don't tell the secrets. We'll all get in trouble.
But the framing sequence is sort of a sequel to the Magneto one-off I did last fall, last Christmas, somewhere in there, the end of last year, wherein Magneto meets a young multiracial 13-year-old named Kate. And because she's named Kate, there's a double with his own daughter, Katarina, and Kitty. And they become friends.
Okay.
And this is sort of kind of what happens next.
Nice.
He's not in it, but because this time it's the other Kate.
I see, but
so you're sitting outside
it still happens in
it's sort of like she's sitting out front at her place in the middle of Texas, and suddenly she smells like this burning smell, opens her eyes, and there's a dragon looking at her, and we're off and running.
Wow.
I can say no more.
No, please don't. I don't want to spoil anything. But this takes place in the same time frame as the original. Because like you did a sequel, A God Loves Man.
Well, no, it's
Extreme
20 years
X-Men.
later.
Right. So this framing sequence takes place later then, as it were, or that's something.
It takes place in the quote unquote present day.
Got it. Okay. Well, I'm excited. When is that? When do we think we're going to see that? When is that going to hit the stand? Well, I mean, it's hard to tell nowadays, but
your guess is as good as mine.
When was the original? And
theoretically, the original was supposed to come out the end of either the first week of April, and then it would have been the first week of May.
Okay, so well, let's see.
I don't know.
Back on track.
Okay, because hang on a sec. Mike, can you hear me okay? Because you're very crackly.
I can hear you. Fine.
I don't know. Okay. So I'll fake it. No, it's whatever the current X-Men era relating to my era. This story fits in the same. It's a little later because obviously the framing sequence of the sequence of the X-Men Magneto story was before whatever was happening in the current X arc happened, but it's roughly now, whatever that means.
I see what you're saying. I can't wait.
But on a really plus side, and it reunites me and Brent, and his art is spectacular.
Have you worked together since the original story? Have you worked together since then?
What?
Is this the first time you worked together since then?
No, well, depends. We did two, maybe 3 single issues of X-Men back in the day.
Oh, that's right. Yes, I remember.
Which we did the issue where Scott's on the road after leaving the X-Men, and then there was an annual, I think. They're roughly the same time, so it was a long, long time ago in a galaxy far away.
I get it.
But you want to hear an interesting point?
Sure.
The phrase "a long ago in a galaxy far away." Galaxies in and of themselves are far away. So if you're looking at a galaxy, you're actually seeing what happened in that galaxy, for want of a better phrase, a very long time ago. So if, for example, people from that galaxy were able to teleport or go faster than light 20 times and come to visit, they might be the same people that we're used to seeing. Just saying. There are ways around so many rules, and I'm sure Disney will find all of them.
I'm sure whatever they
exploit them properly.
Exactly. Awesome. Galaxy Far, Far Away. I believe you once got a
Shiara Far Away. What?
once got a chance
Sorry?
to George Lucas, didn't you?
Say it again.
Speaking of a galaxy far, far away, you got to work with George Lucas once, didn't you?
Oh God, yes, yeah.
Well,
my wife will never forgive me. Well, because it was the beginning of the 90s, so George R.R. Martin was just starting to write Game of Thrones, and J.K. Rowling was just starting to write Hogwarts, and I was no longer working from home. I could have, and unfortunately I get a call from, I think, Del Rey or Bantam saying, "You want to write a novel with George Lucas?" And I said, "Hell yes." And Beth said, "Don't you dare. This is your time." And I said, "But honey, it's George Lucas." Yada, yada, yada. And the rest, as they say, is history. In retrospect, it was a dumbass. It was a great experience, but it was really a dumbass move, which I will, in many ways, regret for a long time.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. I guess.
No, it has nothing.
You always hope that it's a learning.
It was me being a total fanboy. Which I'm now trying to make up for. This is what I've been doing for the last 2.5 months. It's not comics.
Right, I see what you're saying.
But because
I remember myself. I remember reading as a kid, First Flight and Grounded and a few other books that you had written. So it's great when you're toes into that other stretch those other muscles as a prose author.
Yeah, no, it's other muscles, but it's the thing about books is it takes a hell of a lot of time, and for me, it's a friend of mine, when he's writing a novel, basically leaves home and goes off and rents a chalet or and for 3 months writing. And for me, I found, like Stan, that I'm really good at this and I can do it really fast. And, this is where fantasizing that if it gone the other way, when John Byrne said to Jim, he goes or I go, to Jim Shooter, he goes or I go. If Jim had said, "Oh, John, you can do the X-Men," and okay, maybe I'd have gone and done the FF, but I wouldn't have had the same passion. So maybe I'd have backed off a little and written books instead.
Okay.
You never know. I mean, this is if there's an alternate dimension, I may have gone the other way and total failure. Who the hell knows? I am what I am, and I did what I did, and you've
had a very illustrious
great advantage. Well, no, the one key thing about all of this, surprisingly, is I'm not done yet.
Oh, fun.
I'm still moving forward. I'm still, God help me, working for Marvel. And so for me, it's what can I do tomorrow?
I have a question from
the nice thing.
Her name is Angela. She's asking what your favorite writers or authors might have been when you were reading.
Sorry, say Angela asked.
What you had mentioned about how authors and writing. When you were, who are people that you like to read? What other comic book authors did you like, or when you were reading?
Oh, okay. You mean who were? Well, when it comes to comic books, the problem was I grew up reading Dan Dare, Sky Pilot of the Spaceways, and Heroes the Spartan. I read British comics, which in the 50s were binary. The bad ones were really, really bad, but the good ones were majestic.
Okay.
And it was only 2 pages a week, full color. I read, as I came into the 60s, I would try to hold a newspaper so I could read Modesty Blaze, Peter O'Donnell's daily Modesty Blaze. American comics, not so much. I mean, for the most part, there was something I read while waiting for my haircut, to get a haircut once a month. And they were boring. You know, they looked like middle-aged guys. You know, there was nothing, each story was individual and nothing continued from one issue to the next. It was just filling in empty space.
Do you have any particular authors that you like then? Maybe a particular author that you follow?
Well, you know, mostly 19th century and early 20th century, because I'm reading a lot. My one, you know, well, I loved reading, God help me, Mickey Spillane, because he could write scenes that just weirdly grabbed you. Robert Heinlein, you know, my brain is failing me with great enthusiasm.
Those are some of the classics.
Well,
those are great.
Someone like what?
Those are great choices. Those are some of the.
Oh no, wonderful. Yeah. Well, it wasn't so much, and it wasn't even. I mean, I used to love reading science fiction, but now I go back and look at a lot of it, and I realize that it's just filling space in my head. You know, it was maybe me telling myself I can do better than that, and going off and trying to. It's now the interesting irony is I don't read fiction much anymore. I read when I read it's history or social commentary, or I look over my kids' shoulders to see what they're writing. Because, you know, it's, I guess, wanting to see stuff I know I can do better, or worse stuff that, it just fills space. I guess now I'm thinking more in terms of I don't have an infinite amount of time, therefore why am I wasting it?
Makes
better
sense.
Better to put it in a box outside our door and let someone else walk along, pick them up, and walk away with them. That's all. I mean, and yet there's still some stuff that, as I look towards the bookcase for inspiration, I found to because I really loved it when I was reading it, and I you know, theoretically I'll read it again.
I say that to myself all the time. I'll read that someday, but you know.
The more fun is for me is, though fun is definitely not the right word, walking through the neighborhood and looking at people, listening to how they talk, watching their body language, seeing how they interact.
People watching.
Read newspapers. Watching how people talk. Yes, on TV, but you can't help that. You know, watching news conferences.
Is that a tool that you've always incorporate into your stories? People's mannerisms, people's.
Oh no, I steal from everybody. I mean, like every other writer in creation, because you never know what body language, what turn of phrase, what momentary will trigger a series of resonant connections that will take random events and turn them into, hey, that could be cool. And then you start following that could be cool phrase option and see where it leads. But that's the whole point, is the best stories ideally always come from the world around you. You don't, I mean,
life is more exciting.
You can write a story. Well, there's more depth, there's more relevance, there's more of a foundation. If you can take the most fantastic of characters, whether they're the FF or the Avengers or the X-Men, but build the story around a moment of reality, so that you get emails from kids, well, letters saying, I've been in that scene. I know people who've been in that scene. That means something to me.
Right. It's always building that connection.
That can have the same sort of impact as that the opening scene from Avengers, where Hawkeye turns around and his family's gone. And as the audience, we know what it means to see that little white dust going through the air, but he doesn't. And that is like, holy cow. And right off the bat, boom, you're sort of gathered into his embrace to see where it goes from there.
That makes I totally agree. I love the character moments are what is important to me.
And the better part is when you get to the end and you see Steve Rogers as an old man, and not Hawkeye, but Falcon. Is it
Falcon? Yeah.
What's his face with the wings? The black guy with the wings. That is Falcon. Comes over, Steve, hi, and Steve gives him the you be the new Captain America. You're gonna tell me what you do in the last 70 years, and Chris Pine kind of looks at him and does this little great smile and says, no, because it's none of your damn business, but B, it suddenly struck me that, like, holy cow, when you see them dancing, him and Peggy Carter, that's pre-war. So they've been living together now. They lived together for 50, 60 years, and no one ever, the question didn't come up at the end of Avengers, did they have kids? And if they had kids, do the kids have the same genetic reality potential that Cap does?
And are they the next generation?
There you go. That's it.
They're the next generation.
That's it. That's where
the next character you can relate to. It's
no,
the next generation.
Yeah, I mean, that's why for me, I think, for me as a creator, I think, much as I like the kid, sorry.
No worries.
Well, no, I'm waiting for it to start.
Hey, I have another question for you. I have another question for you because.
Well, let me just give you this quick.
Sorry.
But see, for me, the obvious thing was, much as I like the kid from Iron Man 3, leave him off the ground. Why? Because the first to see his daughter, Tony's daughter, she's wearing her mom's Iron Man helmet. And she's figured it out. And I suddenly thought, bingo, you want Iron Man? So she spends the next 3 years modifying her mom's armor. She's now 8 years old, 9 years old.
Right.
But in the armor, nobody knows who she is. No, the voice could be Tony's voice. And even better, I thought, you can pay Robert Downey enough for this. He's AI that backs her up. So, but the rationale being, I can keep an eye, even though I'm dead, my AI can keep an eye on my daughter as she gets older. So you've immediately got room for 5 or 6 films as she goes from 8 to 18 to college. But bingo. And then, of course, the punchline is, are you sure that's an AI? And we're talking, would Tony leave his daughter or find a way to hold on to himself? But he could never tell Pepper. He would never let him out of the house because it would break her heart to know that, except Pepper, being smart, has figured it out already. But this is what I do. I look at these scenes and I think, oh, shoot, could be so much more interesting.
Well, that's why
I don't do movies.
That is.
Next question.
Well, I got a comment from Len Castro. He's from Honduras, and he says his first Marvel comic book was Uncanny X-Men #1 by you. So my question, I guess, comes from, you get to meet so many fans from all around the world, which is must be an incredible feeling. And especially when we have conventions, you get to come out to a convention and you get to meet these folks. So in all the years that you've been doing conventions, and no pressure about saying it has to be a Repop convention, is there any particular favorite convention story that you have?
Well, I have to say San Diego, because San Diego was the convention. And one of the first ones I went to, I ended up having, because Harlan Ellison couldn't find a way to get back to LA because he'd stayed too late. So I gave him the other bed in my room, and he never forgave me for it.
That sounds like Harlan.
Oh, really? But I mean, but this is San Diego back when it was 1,200 people.
It was a much more,
when it was 1,500, 2,000 people. When, San Diego was not San Diego as we know it now, where you had to literally watch your back going out for dinner. I remember Steve Lealoa and me and Trina going out for dinner, and like a block in front of us, some guy comes flying out the window of the second floor in the middle, in a gang fight, and we decided maybe not this way. Now it's all totally behaved. No, it was.
Oh, now
you look out the window on Saturday night, and you've got all these guys on leave from the Marine base over by the airport, and all these young lady entrepreneurs looking for a brief, shining hours worth of relaxation. It's totally different from, we were walking down the street to the dinner one night, and this plainclothes car drives by, and across the street is dressed up as Indiana Jones, but he's wearing a real looking 38, and the car just pulls over, and one cop comes out, and the other cop dashes across the street, and we're standing there looking, and the guy on our side is behind the car. He walks down our side of the street. The other cop goes down the other side of the street, and I realized the cop on our side of the street has drawn his weapon.
Oh my God!
He's holding it at his side. He's not like walking around.
But
he's
still,
got his weapon out.
He's got his weapon out.
The other guy comes. Yeah, because as far as they know, there's a guy across the street with a gate, and they don't know what's going on. I mean, yeah, it could be a costume party, but and the other cop walks up to the kid and just grabs him from behind. One arm goes around him like this. The other hand goes down and pins the gun. At which point he was, they push him against the car. The other cop runs over. Within 2 hours that night at the Eisners, well, what was then the equivalent of the Eisners, they announced the no weapons policy. And I actually can remember 3 different conventions where something like that happened, where this is the early 80s. It was a whole different world in a whole lot of different ways, but weird stuff happens. And but again, San Diego was a totally different place. New York Comic Con was
beyond. I remember going
different. Let us say.
I remember going to the Penta Hotel shows, as a kid in the 80s and the 90s, which they were small, intimate little things, and I can meet a creator and I could talk with them for hours, opposed to now it's become big that they have so much more to offer, and yet those quiet moments, those like character moments, sometimes can get lost. I get that.
Well, but the other side of the coin is sitting there and realizing people are willing to stand in line for as long as they stand in line, And for me, it's like, I can't believe it because I've been doing this for a long time, and yet people are still excited. And so the only way I can deal with it, or the only way I want to deal with it, is if you're going to stand in line for hours, it is my responsibility to give you the best I can do, and have moments with you, or minutes with you if we're lucky, and make it worth the effort. Why? I want you to come back. I want you to like the work that I'm doing and give it a second shot down the line. Why? Because that's what I do. It's, it's watching kids in line. It's sitting at a convention in Houston, and finding out that Patrick Stewart was looking out confused and wondering, why the hell is his line longer than mine? And thinking, yes.
I have, like, for me, when I see, and the perfect example is for you and Stan and Walt Simonson did a panel a couple of years back at New York Comic Con, if I recall. I think it was New York. It was.
Yeah, well, that's when we went to the theater down the street.
Yeah, I think it was at. I don't remember where.
Madison Square.
Right, and going out, I ran over there and I peeked in real quick because I didn't have a tremendous amount of time. But just seeing all of these thousands of people, literally thousands of people who are experiencing this moment, and for me, like as being part of this team and help building those moments, it means a lot to us that they can take this moment that's going to last them a lifetime. This is a memory that is going to last them a lifetime. And take it away from the show. So I can't even imagine what it must feel for you to be standing on that stage, looking out at that crowd, knowing every person there is taking that moment as a gift away. Every word that you speak is a gift to them, in a memory for them. That's
yeah. But in reality, they weren't there for me or Walt, or they were there for Stan, which is
I've seen
absolutely
I've seen you pack a room too. That's not true, sir. I've seen you pack a room too.
Yeah, but but bear in mind, God, Stan and I, when he passed, I'd known him for 50 years. I mean, think about that. I mean, it's like Stan is responsible for moments that, some of the worst moments of my professional life, and yet he took the time to come over and just sit with me for an hour, for a while, and just talk.
Right.
I mean, you can't, there was nothing he could do to change what had happened, but he felt bad. He wanted to, was there anything he could do to make me feel better? And that's the sort of that's sort of, I don't know, that's why he meant what he did for me, and what that's the I don't know.
I know so many.
Like I have to live up to.
I know so many people who worked with Stan, or at least were in his circles. They feel that hole of his, now that he's no longer with us, they feel that hole. And of course, every person's relationship is different, but people kind of feel like they need to live up to his. He was the ringmaster, right? He made the magic of this industry, as it were. He created that magic. Mm-hmm. And everyone feels like, yes, they have to write their best, they have to draw their best, but they have to give the audience, give the fans that magic. And it's hard. It's not an easy job. And he did it so well. So people professionally and personally always miss his.
You had to bear in mind, never angry. You won't be angry.
What? I'm sorry, I missed that part.
That line, I mean, don't make him angry. You won't like him when he's angry.
I'm sure. I never got to experience that. I got to spend a good amount of time, but
I think Bill Bixby. It's you know, trust me, it's not a dark side. He knew what he wanted. I mean, I'll give you my standard stand speech. He wanted three things from his people: get your books in on time, make them good, don't be a pain in my ass. Why? Because I'm trying to save the company. I don't have time to deal. You know, if I can't trust you to do your job, I'll get somebody else.
Right.
And that's a grown-up view of both his role as editor-in-chief, publisher, and our role as creators, employees. He'll be a teacher if you needed it, but basically, this is a workplace. You have a job. I trust you to do the job. Don't be a pain in my ass because I'm working too hard trying to keep the company up. I'll do my stuff. You do your stuff. And if you don't do your stuff, I'll kick you out and get somebody better.
Well, I guess I can appreciate it. It's a business. Any business works under a similar model.
It was a business, but it was where we had a ridiculous amount of fun. But the other half of the equation was the boss trusted us.
That's nice.
You know, it wasn't like, hey, Claremont, I need to do this issue, that with that issue of X-Men, and don't do this and do that. It was like, okay, have a good time. Don't miss, hit your dates, and you know, you and Cockney seem to know what you're doing. Go do it.
No,
that's gradually over the half century, we've evolved to a different way of doing things, but there you go. That's what made it fun. And occasionally you slipped on the banana peel and it was a dessert, but welcome to the real world.
Exactly. That happens in every industry. It can happen to anyone. So
yeah,
we were just talking about how you've packed rooms. People have stood online.
It'll climb for 5.
It's okay. You've packed panel rooms.
Here we go. Oh. I'm surprised.
So we talked about how you've packed panel rooms, you've had fans wait in line for hours, right? Is there anybody that you have ever met that you've kind of been starstruck by? That when comics first started out, I don't think anyone realized that it would turn into the industry it is today and the opportunities you might have today to meet movie stars and television stars and whoever else you might be able to get to meet nowadays. Was there anyone you ever saw?
Robert Heinlein.
Robert Heinlein.
Robert Heinlein.
Wow. That's a big one.
We were at...
Tell the story, please.
When I was a young punk. I was a member of the Science Fiction Writers of America. Every year we used to have our meeting, our version of the Comic-Con. And so this is the year that Heinlein became a Grand Master. And afterwards there was a meet and greet. So he's sitting there in his chair and everybody's going up and saying, what you always say. And the irony is he looked way older than he was. He was a little out of focus. And what turned out to be, he had not a brain, and he had a slight dysfunction.
Okay.
Later, he went in, had surgery, and boom, he was good for another 5 novels that were really good. So, this is just... Anyway, I wanted to go up and tell him what he meant to me. I'm a writer because of you. I do this because of you. And I just walked up and looked at him and was like, hey, dude, your stuff, man, really cool. And he's looking at me as like, you are such a joke. Fortunately, my girlfriend walked over and gave him a big kiss, which made everything better, I hope. But no, I mean, that's it. You know, you meet the idol, the person whom you, one of the reasons you are, I am a writer, and slipped on a never-ending line of banana peels. And that's, you know, so it's the lesson. No matter how good you think you are, there's always a banana peel, and get used to it.
It must be great that now you are probably that person for someone else. Like, for example, I just got a comment from Ken Lashley. I don't know if you're familiar with Ken, but Ken is a professional comic book artist in the industry. He has drawn the X-Men.
Mm-hmm.
He made a comment that said your X-Men is what made you want to be in the industry, be a comic book artist, be in the industry. So you have had that impact that passes down. That must be an amazing feeling. I see you roll your eyes, Chris. It's come on.
Well, no, but I figure the only thing, my only way to respond is I'm not done yet. You know, it's because.
Oh, you can still inspire people. That doesn't change.
I know. I mean, I still. Oh no. But what I mean is, it's like I look at books and I think, oh, I still have things to say with these characters. I want to work with this artist. This is cool. That is cool. I want to challenge myself just to see if I can do it.
Of course.
You know, just to see if I can get a positive rise out of the audience. It's the same with any writer starting their next work, or any artist, I assume. I go online and I look at what Bill Sienkiewicz does in the wee small hours of the morning, and I think,
Bill is a person who never stops. Never stops.
Well, you know, when we did our New Mutants last year, and both of it, you know, we haven't worked together for 35 years more.
Has it been that long? Really? Wow.
My basic feeling was,
It's been that long, I didn't realize. Wow.
Yeah, it's really annoying. I mean, look, 1991 was when the first run ended. So 91, 1, 11. So next year it'll be 30 years.
Wow.
Since I got fired the first time. But the point here is that Bill wasn't sure how it would go. I wasn't sure how it would go. And then I just suddenly had my epiphany and said, screw it, this is the next issue. It just took us a while. And that was the pitch I gave Bill. And that was the approach I did to telling the story. And it inspired him to go to town. Of course, the punchline is that my youngest son and I were, when we were at Reed Pop last spring, when there were conventions, you know, we were at Chicago.
I remember it well.
And
I miss it.
Yes, that was when I actually got to go to Seattle. Because Seattle, but no, I mean, so my son comes up to CB and says, "Oh man, Bill Sienkiewicz, Chris Claremont, New Mutants. So 100 pages, right?" And CB like, huh? And so my son goes into this rhapsodic rationale for why you should do 100-page New Mutants by me and Bill. And you know, you can start it for a deluxe hard full-size edition that you sell for $150, and you gradually scale it down. So you make all the print money, all the production money off the first incredibly overpriced, expensive, and gorgeous issue or product, and then you keep scaling it back, and at the end you end up with $1 bazillion, and everybody's happy. And CB's like, ah, and I thought, I'm not going to go anywhere near this conversation. I'm just going to stand here and watch. God bless you, my boy. No, I mean, it was, but, you know, Ben was right. CB was right too, because this is part of an ongoing format. And if, you know, Bill and I started doing 100 pages of New Mutants, we'd probably be doing it now. But that was the weird, in a day, we could actually get away with stuff like that.
Right.
You actually had a measure of freedom in terms of, well, let's try it. We have no idea it'll work, but it might. So you tried giant size number 1, and then that doesn't work. So you go to bi-monthly. It's freedom with comics as an industry, and Marvel specifically, that gradually over the years the decades we've grown out of, because that's the nature of things. But we could get away with some really cool stuff. And even though the really cool stuff occasionally flat on its face, quite spectacularly in some cases, when it worked, it worked.
Your run together on New Mutants is probably one of my favorite X books of all time. Like, I loved it. Again, I was a teenager at that time, so
yet I go online. Well, no, what I was saying, my apologies for interrupting. But yet I go online, and the arguments every time somebody puts up a Sienkiewicz page and says this issue is good, I hate Sienkiewicz, blah, 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 blah. And they love it or they hate it. But I think for both Bill and me, the one cool thing, the one differential that makes that moment stand out is they have a primal emotional reaction. And that's what matters, that they care. They either care positively or they care negatively. But I would rather have someone care and read every issue just to see, oh, you fucked up again. Or at least you got a better artist this time, than take it for granted. I don't want to take things for granted. I don't take them for granted. Why should you? Let's have fun. Let's do 26 Salva issues of Excalibur, and then suddenly follow it with 12 issues or Corday doing totally different stuff. Nothing like anything that's done in American comics before or since, to me anyway. And yet I found it as exciting and as absolutely grossing for me as a writer as Salva's. Why? Because he didn't do great bits, but his character, the character design, the character presentation was breathtaking. So sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But in every case, if the gods align properly, you've got something that makes you take a second look, and that second look can make a difference.
I agree. Chris, I don't want to keep you much longer. I want to wrap up real quick. I've got one more question.
I'm all by myself here, so
I got one more.
I'm at disposal.
And it's kind of an oddball question. I kind of like to give the fans a little bit of an insight into you and your world. So my question is, what is a hidden talent that Chris Claremont has that we don't know about? Do you sing? Do you juggle? What is a hidden talent that we don't know about?
Huh. I do the dishes really well.
I'm sure Beth appreciates that.
It drives her crazy that I can't. She says, if I didn't cook the food, you'd all starve. On the other hand, I do the dishes. Now I'm trying to work my way up to cleaning the floors. No, I mean, hidden talents. And the joke is, I started to be a professional actor. I didn't want to write comics. Comics was paying the rent for 3 months before I went up did summer stock. Working as an assistant editor at Marvel. I'm getting $125 a week. Woohoo!
I think I think you told me about this once before, but I don't think the general audience might not know that you originally wanted to be an actor. So that's definitely something hidden talent that
I've actually been a member of SAG-AFTRA. Well, it was AFTRA, all of them. since 1972.
I mean,
He giggled
cameos
maniacally.
in the X-Men movies. Well, what other stuff have you done in acting wise?
Very little, because writing still pays better. You know, I mean, it's, you know, you know, my great dream was, like Stan, to go west and make some great movies. You know, that's why back in the day when he and I sat down with Jim Cameron and we were going to pitch, well, we were there to pitch him the X-Men, I thought, and Cameron was there to pitch us Catherine Bigelow as the director. So think about it. You know, I was sitting there thinking about it and going, huh, Catherine Bigelow. Okay. Cameron says she's great. I certainly have enough, a really fair amount of female characters for her to play with. In retrospect, can you imagine an X-Men in 1990 directed by Catherine Bigelow, produced by, you know,
We did definitely been different than what we
by
got.
Jim Cameron.
Right.
It would have been an interesting. It would have been interesting.
Most certainly.
Except that Stan had a different ambition, and that's why he looked at Cameron and said, "I hear you like Spider-Man." And well, Cameron was a huge Spider-Man fan,
Right.
and within 20 minutes, he and Stan were pitching ideas back and forth. Cameron was going to produce it, direct it, he's going to write it. It would be fun. It would have, you know, and thus, you know, that's how stories you want to go one way, go the other way. Things happen. But it was, you know, there was that moment.
So
it all worked out 10 years later with what?
There is an alternate universe.
Sorry?
Well, there is an alternate universe. Chris Claremont is an actor, yeah. But we did not get all of this legendary X-Men stories that defined the industry and defined multiple medias.
Yeah, I mean it's different. You know, there was that moment. You could say the same thing about the moment in the mid '90s when Shooter made an offer for Marvel that was the higher offer, but the management knew that if he the company, he'd fire them all, if for nothing else than to get his revenge for them firing him. So they sold it to New World, and that's how it led to Marvel being what it is. So you never, you know, things go on in different circles.
Understood. Well, I'm happy to live in the universe where we had Chris Claremont, the writer. I would love to see you act, but I think we're all.
I act on the page all the time.
I'm sorry, what?
You know, I mean, I act on the page all the time.
That is true.
Just through 1,000 different characters.
That's true. So in some respects, you did get to be an actor. You did get to take on these different roles and give these different voices. It's probably on a
writer is just an actor. Well, no, the thing to bear in mind is any writer worth the salt is an actor, a director, and a producer all rolled into one. So, you know, it's the thing to bear in mind is that you're an actor, you are bringing another person's words to life, another person's vision to life. But the thing you can never forget, or should always remember, is another person's vision. So as a writer, I guess I have the best of both worlds. It's my vision and my characters, and love them or hate them, at least they're mine.
Well, I think
except when they're Marvels.
Well, I think that we all love them. Anybody who's ever written anything that you've done. I know you have touched me and touched so many other people with your stories. So I have to say that, for the most part,
Oh, shucks.
you have created a legacy, and as you said, you're still not done yet. There's still more to come. So, Chris, I want to thank you for coming today. Coming to talk to us. Really appreciate it. It was great talking to you. Great spending time with you. I know the fans had.
It's always great talking to you.
Always, my friend. Always.
Sorry you faded out in the last.
Oh, I said it's always great talking to you. Hopefully,
Sorry?
it's always great talking with you. And I'm hoping that we
The
get.
pleasure is mine.
We're going to see you at, God willing, we're going to see you at Florida Supercon in July, and other Repop shows. But hopefully we we all get together soon, and we get to enjoy the things we love so much and talk again, and just get to be together again.
Oh, your Chinese food?
And I still
enjoy the things we love.
I haven't forgotten. I still owe you the whole hop. I haven't forgotten. We're going to do that. I promise.
No. It's just walking up and down the streets here and looking at, everything still being closed, and, crossing my imaginary fingers that when this all passes, they'll still be able to open.
Hopefully.
But you see, this is where you need a decent superhero.
It's true.
To come in and fix.
We can use a lot of
but there you go.
Thanks again, Chris. Thanks for joining us. All right, everybody, I'm going to let you guys go.
It is my great pleasure.
Again,
Have fun.
Chris Claremont.
As I said. Nope.
Take care, everybody. We'll see you all soon. Thank you again, Chris. Bye, everybody.
Take care.